Commissioners, will move on to item 1.15, the briefing of the revised Planning Division project intake and review process. Commissioners, you may need to refresh your board docs if you do not see the presentation there.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Steve Kaii-Ziegler, Director of Planning Growth Management.
And I'm Jason Groth, Planning Director.
So, we come to you today with what we think is really, really good news. It's not often that we get to bring forward something that we're actually this proud of, but we've had a fair amount of time since we've reorganized about a year ago. We've filled vacant positions. We've been actually working on making ourselves more efficient and effective in the work that we do. So we're here kind of to announce that as of May 1 of this year, Planning Division is going to begin implementing a new application intake procedure and reduced time frame. And the goal of this is to keep projects moving forward as effectively and efficiently as possible within the limits of our authority and the capacity that we have as staff. So the type of applications that would be effective by this new procedure would be site development plans, both major and minor plats of subdivision, what we call minor subdivisions, conceptual subdivision plans, preliminary subdivision plans, major plats of subdivisions, planned development zone or floating zone applications, special exceptions, variances, zoning text amendments, and zoning map amendments. What you didn't hear me say was building permits. We're working on a companion program within CPIS, Code Permits Inspections, that will allow us to, I'm going to say, reconsider and expedite permits in a better way than we have been able to in the past, but we're not ready to roll that out as of yet. With all of the type of projects that I've just mentioned, though, we've been practicing for the last 2, 3, 4 months. And we feel we're in a position now to announce when we can actually roll it out officially. Some of the key things that are going to change, we're now going to have a required pre-submittal conference meeting with anyone who wants to submit one of those applications. In the past, pre-submittal conference meetings were encouraged, but I would say relatively rarely used. And what this is designed to do is allow applicants and the staff the opportunity to explore whether or not the project is viable, discuss major code and ordinance requirements, receive information on fees and review time periods, which are very important to everyone, define the project requirements, highlight any special concerns or considerations, and ensure that application contains the minimum required information in order to be submitted. For us, that has historically been an issue in that we often would receive incomplete applications, but they were accepted and the review process would begin. When you start with an incomplete application, it's going to add time to the review process, and it's also going to require more revisions than is necessary. So if you go to slide 5, this is a very important one within the presentation, and this talks about the reduced review time periods, how it will actually occur. We typically break down our review cycle into the application's completeness, review, and distribution to all of the agencies that are involved in the review. And that's not just county agencies, it's often state agencies, which can include the Soil Conservation District, State Highway Administration, Health Department, MDE in particular cases, but there could be a lot of state and in some cases federal agencies involved. Then we have the actual review and comment period where we conduct the review and complete our comments. And the last part is we create the comment letter where we bring all of the various comments together into a letter that can be forwarded to both the property owner, the applicant, the agent. The current policy gives us 71 days to do those things. Okay? The new policy for commercial or non-residential development is reduced to 33 days. For residential development, it's 42 days. So we're comparing 71 days now to 33 or 42 days in the future. And that's for a first review. Historically, our reviews have always been the same amount of time. One of the things we want to do as we go further into the presentation is for a second, third, or fourth review, we're cutting our time that we have to review the project. It's a pretty major change in the process and procedure that we do today, and that we hope is going to provide much more efficient, effective, I'm going to say, guidance to a developer or a property owner who's looking for feedback on their development application. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Groth to talk a little bit about something that's very, very key in the process, the Technical Review Committee, or TRC.
Thanks, Steve. The Technical Review Committee process is a meeting of key staff members who were collaborating and meeting on the submission by the applicant. And the goal of the meeting is to bring the applicant and/or their agents in to talk about the project, talk about the comments that staff gathered on the submission, and make sure it's very clear what staff is looking for, what the law requires, and what the steps are moving forward, and field any questions they might have. Essentially making sure that the communication is abundantly clear and giving that opportunity so that there's no guesswork. One of the things to note is that we already do a technical review committee today, and we have for many, many years. But the TRC today is after the third review. It was viewed it's been done in different places throughout the years, but where we've been doing it in the more recent past is after the third review. And the reason for it is we figured if the comments weren't clear enough through 3 review cycles going back and forth, then there must be a need to bring the applicant in and talk about it. The new thought process is let's get that done up front. Let's make sure that the applicant and their agents understand exactly what the code requires and what the county comments mean. Have some give and take back and forth, and then move forward from there with their resubmission. The participation of the applicant and their agent is mandatory at this stage. They cannot resubmit for their second review, assuming they need to resubmit, and most do. Until this TRC meeting has occurred. And so with that, it will enable that everything's understood and they can resubmit. And of course it goes both ways. It gives the applicant an opportunity to field any concerns or questions they have. On subsequent reviews, after they participate in the TRC meeting, applicants can resubmit their projects for the subsequent reviews. And the one thing that we're putting out there as an incentive is an increased time frame, an expedited time frame on our side. We want to incentivize applicants to resubmit, keep their projects moving, and eliminate any delays, at least on the county side. And so for that, we have a more detailed slide, which is is slide 8. And that's looking at the new policy and then the amount of days that staff has for various steps in the process. First thing is completeness review and distribution. Steve had a slide previously that showed we had 14 days for a completeness review and distribution, and that was more or less 7 days for a completeness review of a submission and another 7 days to distribute the project. This was based on an older time frame where we had support staff formulating a distribution memo and then distributing it to various agencies, and a very paper-intensive process, so we needed additional time. Now with our new electronic permitting system, it enables us to send things out in a flash and be much more efficient and coordinated. So you can see on slide 8 that the completeness review is 7 days for a resubmission that's less than 90 days. So in other words, we have that TRC meeting, and then if they resubmit within 90 days of that TRC meeting, we have this compressed time frame in terms of staff review. The review and comment period is 15 days, so 2 weeks. And the creation of the comment letter is 5 days. And the reason, these are calendar days, so we need to allow enough time for weekends and holidays to occur, that sort of thing. We want to make sure that staff has adequate time to get it out. Of course, if we can do it in less time than that, we're going to do that. So you can see that the complete package of review from resubmission of second and beyond submissions to the time we turn it around and get a comment letter out is 27 days. Under the new policy, if they submit after 90 days, but less than 180 days. You can see the review timeframes are slightly longer, so there's that incentive if they submit in the 90 days. 33 days total for commercial and a 42-day review for residential, and that includes all the steps in the process on the county side. And then there's the comparison to the current county policy. So that kind of gives you that impression. And just the footnote there is just to say that under the subdivision regulations currently, if an applicant does not resubmit their project within 180 days, we do consider the project to be voided. So that is a current county policy, and we're continuing to adhere to that.
Okay.
Steve?
So currently, a project undergoing 3 reviews would take 213 days or about 7 months to process. And I can tell you that most of the projects that fall within the category of projects I talked about probably take at least 3 reviews to work their way through. So it's a pretty lengthy process. We understand that. Effective May 1, we're estimating that same thing, that same project going through 3 reviews would take between 87 and 99 days, which is 3 to 3.5 months for a commercial project, 96 to 126 days, or 3 to 4 months for a residential project, significantly faster than we've been able to do in the past. In most cases, though, total review times have been cut by at least half, if not more, which was our goal. The next steps for us, we need to finalize the online pre-submittal conference appointment request. We're going to organize, calendar, and schedule all of this. We need to meet with the TRC agencies, and those are the same agencies that we talked about, whether it's county or state or federal groups, to ensure that they are available to participate in these meetings. We need to prepare a green notice and work with media to notify the public, and we need to begin analyzing the permit. We are actually analyzing the building permit review time periods now, and we are practicing with expedited review times over what we have worked with in the past. So we're pretty excited about this opportunity to talk about this, and I'm going to say Jason and his group, John Mudd and staff, have put a tremendous amount of time and effort. We are functionally trying to elevate the culture, a way that we have done work. This is one of the things that we can do to help achieve that. So we're excited, and perhaps you might have some questions.
Thank you. I believe you've listened to us and what some of our concerns were, and to the residents of the county, and you're taking action. One thing I will ask is that I think it's something warranted, is all these things you've put in place I think are significant and will improve the process. I think we need something similar to a trail audit so that we can have some follow-up to see what the response is from our community, and after we've implemented this, to see what they think of the process, to measure where we were and where we are.
We certainly can.
And with the trail audit, I think, and I will say to you all, we need to document everything so that when it comes back and we have concerns raised, we can go back to the documents and say, here's what it is, and if there was fault on our end, we accept responsibility. If there's fault on another end, we have a reasonable conversation with the residents and say, this is why where we are where we are where we are.
Understood.
If that makes sense.
It does, and let me add to that one of the key pieces of information that allowed us to come forward with this is we have been practicing. We can track now. EnerGov helps a great deal, but we use a variety of other methods to help track how long it takes to move a project through. What are the problems either an applicant is having or we're having? So we have been tracking, and we'll be in a position to come back with periodically several times a year with further reports on how successful we are. We would not have put this out, though, if we did not feel we were very, very confident that we could achieve this.
The only comment I have is you made reference to expedited process. I understand clearly that people want things done as efficiently as possible and as quickly as possible. But I also understand, and for me, one of the major issues is if there's a potential project that could potentially bring commercial dollars to the county, and if that project, may be in a position where it may be looking at other jurisdictions, as a potential option. how would this process ensure that we're being competitive, but at the same time being fair, you know, because we want the process to continue to be fair. We don't want to give the impression, obviously, that we're bumping over projects because this project may be considered more important. But the reality is what that potential project may bring in terms of commercial development, and I'm speaking primarily of commercial
Absolutely.
projects. How is this process, or how will this process improve on what we already have in place? And I guess my final comment, and also ensuring that there's a direct connection between your office and the Economic Development Department. Because for me, I've always thought that, you know, that interaction when you were talking about a major commercial project should be fundamental. And I think it will ensure, you know, the future success of a project similar to that. So.
Agreed. Excellent point. What I would respond with is that what we laid out for you today is the process that everyone will benefit from. So it's faster for everyone in relation to what we did in the past. To get to your point, though, we have a process currently in place called Permit Expedite. And maybe I misspoke earlier when I used the word expedite, but Permit Expedite is a bit of a formalized process between EDD and PGM, where based on a project's potential to bring jobs to the county, the tax base that it would generate or meet some other public policy purpose, we can basically assign a project permit expedite process. And typically they're only for non-residential projects. We are working with EDD right now on probably 3 informal and 2 or 3 formal permit expedite projects. Those projects go to the top of the list, no matter what. So when there is that potential for something that can benefit the county to that degree, we all believe that they do have to be treated somewhat different, and they move faster than anything else. And for us, they go to the top even if we're improving service for everyone else. So far, I think, and and that would be a good discussion with Mr. Brown and EDD, but I think it's working very, very well. We communicate on almost a daily basis. Within PGM, we have what we call a crash meeting on Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9 a.m. to deal with all of the interesting things that might happen that day or new things coming onto the horizon. If EDD has potentially a permit expedite process, they'll have someone come to that meeting. We start the process of working together to formalize how we're going to deal with it, and off we go. And I think it does work very well. One of the most important things with permit expedites is it requires constant coordination. Mm-hmm. So one of the things is we assign a project manager, and everyone in our group who might be dealing with the project, there's always a component from EDD, and the applicants team meet on a regular basis to ensure that we are tracking well. So I think that works well, and I'm glad you brought that up because that wasn't a part of the presentation, but it's an ancillary part that's very important.
And our reviews of the current permit expedite projects have been shorter than the ones on the chart. We've generally been turning out comments in a week on those projects. Mm-hmm. And that's not something that we have as a benchmark time frame, but we are turning those comments out as fast as we can for those particular projects without sacrificing quality of the review.
Thank you.
Thank you.